Okay, so welcome this morning. My name is Julie Workman, Instructional Leadership and Learning Specialist at Archer. We are excited that you are jumping in today and joining us. We have a pretty diverse group. Originally, this session was just counselors, but with our snow day, it opened up some for lots of others to jump in as well. Anytime we have our ladies aware, we always want to share the wealth because they are so amazing at what they do. So I am going to turn it over to them. We have Dr. Betsy Kendall, who is here with us, and Nicole Fairchild, both from Arkansas Aware. So ladies, I'll turn to you and let you introduce yourselves and get started.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Nicole, are you on here?
I am.
Okay, good. Just making sure you're there. My name is Betsy Kendall, and I work for the Department of Education, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. I've worked for them for a long time. I am a teacher by trade and a school counselor, licensed school counselor. But for the last decade or so, I've been working with school districts across the state to help coordinate school-based mental health programming. So districts who employ their own clinician or who contract with clinicians, I kind of help set those up and offer a ton of resources. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the session. We have some great information for you today, and then we left some time, quite a bit of time at the end, because we know that you're going to have a lot of questions. And so I'm super excited that Nicole is here with me. So I'll hand it over to her, and I'm going to be more of a Tweety bird. There's a few things I want to say during this session, but I'm going to let her lead this session, and I will man the chat box with any questions. And I must apologize because the sun is really bright behind me, but I am here even though I look like a shadow.
Fireside chat. Looks like you should have. Yeah, there you go. So my name's Nicole Fairchild. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've worked in outpatient mental health. I've worked as a school-based mental health clinician. I've been in charge of a school-based health center, and now I'm working here with Project Aware as a site manager. And so for the last 2.5 years that we've been in this grant, we've really been trying to come up with trainings and resources for educators to reduce stigma, to help more kids get into services, and really to help educators feel competent and confident about their ability to do what they can when it comes to helping students with mental health issues. So we're excited to be with you today. I will say, Betsy's going to watch that chat. So if you do have a specific question, something that you want us to address, we're here for you. So we will tailor this and shift this as we move forward, depending on what you really want to hear from us. So please let us know that. So what I want to start off with is this. Rapport is still the key. So when it comes to meeting the needs of students who are virtual or when we're away from them, rapport is the key, just the same as it is when we're face to face. And, you know, I think we've said over and over again, build rapport before you need it. Like, have it before you need it so that when you need it, it's there. And I think this whole past year has kind of helped us to see where we didn't have it and now we need it, where we had it and that went well or went better. And so it really is critical that we fill in those gaps, that we figure out where we need to build more of it and what we need to do to move forward. I'll say this, I've never ever sent a kid to the hospital for inpatient treatment and had them come back healed because of the hospital treatment. It's not the hospital treatment that heals them, and it's not the medicine necessarily either. What really repairs broken hearts is relationships. That's what makes the difference. So maybe it is a relationship with a therapist. Maybe it is a relationship with a psychiatrist. Maybe it is a relationship made there in the inpatient facility, but it's not like it's the hospital that takes that. It's relationships. We're people. And so relationships are what heal. as a clinician, it is my therapeutic relationship with a child that will heal them. It's not some fancy technique I use. Okay. And so you are in the education field, and you may not have all the fancy techniques I have, but what you do have is the ability to build relationship. And that's the thing that makes the most difference. So small doses from you in a caring, attuned, neutral, I want to just hear what you have to say kind of way. Those small little doses that you guys give throughout the course of a day, they add up and they make a tremendous difference in the lives of young people. And so first of all, I want to say that this is not tricky in terms of, well, I wonder what I should do. What we should do is pretty clear, and it's pretty simple in its design. It can be hard to do it because some of us have the skills naturally, some of us don't, and some of us haven't built the skills yet. And so I do wonder in the chat box if you would tell me, maybe scale of 1 to 10, how good you think you are at building rapport with young people. So 10 is no problems, like I'm the best. And 1 is I really struggle with that. It's not a skill I have. What I want to say to you is this: it's a skill. Okay, it's a skill, which means it can be learned. So I was not naturally good at it. I was an introvert. I am a Yankee. We don't do small talk the way y'all do. Like I did not want to talk to you about the weather at the gas pump. I just have a harder time with that, right? And so I had to learn these skills on purpose, especially when it came to younger children. And so some of you, most of you are saying you're pretty great at this. Good. That's what we need. And I would expect that most people in education would have a pretty good handle on this. So if you feel like you need to develop some skills, maybe with preschool age kids or kindergarten and first graders, or maybe the older kids drive you up a wall and you need to build some skill in terms of how to build rapport with students. Those are skills. They're skills. What tends to happen though is this: we just do what we're naturally good at. And so if this stuff isn't what we're naturally good at, if we are better at the administration, we're better at the paperwork, we're better at the organization, it can be hard for us to do the things that feel harder and not as natural. But right now is an important time to really reinforce and build these skills. In fact, we've been saying social emotional learning is for everyone. And those are skills. When we talk about SEL, those are skills. And working and what do I want to say? Focusing on SEL right now is worthwhile, not just for our students, but for us, because we need it too. And we need to learn how to develop these kinds of skills as well. And so I want to ask you this, and you guys can put in the chat if you'd like to, but when you are talking with a young person, do you stop and ask yourself, do I have enough rapport to say this difficult thing to this person? I will tell you this: do I have enough rapport to advocate on their behalf? Are you constantly assessing these things in the background? It's probably worthwhile, because there are times where we can maybe not do the best thing because we didn't check to see if we had already connected with the student on an important level. I will say one of the other things I would often ask myself in the school is, am I the right person to have this conversation? Or is there somebody else that they're already connected to that might be better at having this conversation? But checking on that relationship in the background, like assessing that, can be really, really difficult. I see some of you, I haven't been able to read.
Yeah, Nicole, I think we have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, do you have suggestions on how to build rapport with virtual students? I feel really strong with my in-person kids because you are able to have so many of those small moments just in the hallway or at lunch, etc. But that is not there in the virtual students, and email is hard to build rapport over sometimes. And it's so funny. Thank you so much for the question. It's so funny you asked that question because it's not really funny, but it's interesting. That seems to be, we did a Q&R yesterday with over 200 people, and we've done a ton of different sessions in the last little bit virtually, and that seems to be a recurring theme of the questions that we get. how do we build those relationships and rapport with the students when they're at home? And I'm going to let Nicole go first, and then I'll add at the end to answer that question.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not as easy because it's not built in. And so what I'm going to say right now is going to take more time. And I don't really know any way around that. And I don't know how or what, if administrators in the room today could maybe think about this, because I don't know that I have all the answers. But I think what this is going to require is some individualized reaching out. So, you know, and we'll give you some ideas about resources, but jumping in a Zoom room and seeing their face, even if it is just for 2 minutes. But
Yeah,
if
I agree with that.
If it's scheduled and regular, so if the student who is at home knows that their math teacher is going to call them every day at 3:17 and they're going to talk till 3:20, then there is something to be said about this, because we know kids respond to structure and stability. And so what can we do to build that in? If it's not Zoom, if they have laggy connections or something like that, could it be actual phone call? Because you're right, especially if they're not very good at typing, or if they write like my son does and he has no capitalization or punctuation. What the heck? I don't even understand. So if it's that kind of thing too, it really is hard. And there are so many different interpretations. So the closer you can get to hearing a voice, like on the phone, or seeing a face in addition to hearing the voice, the more connected we will feel. As humans, that's the way we're designed. And so, yes, Zooming and letting them see your house. You know, even before this, one of the techniques that we would often prescribe or recommend to people is a 2x10. And so if you're having trouble with a student in your classroom, behavior management kind of issue, or maybe you are worried about their mental health, a 2x10 would be you spend 2 minutes with them for 10 days. So that's basically 2 weeks of school. And you just talk about their life for 2 minutes, no academic, nothing about their homework, nothing about their assignments, nothing about their favorite subject in school, nothing about school. You just talk to them for 2 minutes about whatever they want to talk about. And that rapport building can really be reparative. So what could we do to add a little bit more of that in, or even disperse a list of names to a wider list of supports within the school and allow them to do some of the connecting as well? What do you think, Betsy?
I love that idea, the 2x10. And, you know, we are all in this together for sure. And so not only am I responding as an educator to this question, I'm responding as a parent. And so back in the spring, I don't feel like Arkansas was or our educators, we didn't have the systems in place, and we just were not prepared to be home for months on end. My 7th grader had contact from a teacher 0 times, 0, between March and August, 0. Now, in response to the changes, a lot of us have LMS systems up now. We have kind of a more structured thing in play as far as virtual goes. And she is a virtual student now. And what's so interesting is she feels more comfortable reaching out to the teachers because they Zoom her into class a lot. But it goes both ways. So while our kids are feeling isolated, one way to really alleviate that is to set up what Nicole said, is set up that structure. It gives them the confidence to know that, you know what, I can call my teacher any day of the week. And actually this week they had an actual snow day where they were no work or whatever. Well, she didn't really realize, okay, it's a snow day. So she calls her teacher at 8:30 in the morning and she answered and was happy to help her, even though officially I told her, I said, you know, it's really like calling your teacher on a Saturday, probably not the best move. But, you know, a few months ago, she never would have felt comfortable reaching out to her teachers and asking questions. They Zoom her into class a lot. I feel like just that structure and that connection can make all the difference in the relationship and rapport building with your students.
Absolutely. And I think it does have to be not only implemented or started by the teacher, but it probably needs to be reinforced by the teacher. Because Betsy, what would have happened if your daughter would have called that teacher and she would have said, I'm not talking to you right now, or just not answered the phone. And then the next
Absolutely.
time for some reason didn't answer the phone. Kids, you have way more power than these students do. And so if they get any indication that, oh, that was wrong, or they don't like that, or they're not answering, they're going to pull away. They're going to pull way back. They're probably not going to continue to pursue. And so that's part of the reason why structure can be really, really helpful.
I agree. And also in the chat, Angela has given some other ideas about how she set up her virtual classroom and how it's accessible for those students where they can feel comfortable. Thank you for sharing that, Angela.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I have a question on the slide. What are some of your best tips for building rapport virtually? I'm sure some of you were doing that very well. And so, yes, thank you for sharing your tips, and please continue to share them with your colleagues. Some of us are just a little more tech savvy than others of us are. And so some of us are able to kind of implement those things pretty easy and do it on the fly. And it can be really difficult for us to do other and different things. You know, I'll say this too, just kind of along with Betsy. I don't know that my kids have had interactions with their teachers as human beings. I think they've only had interactions with their teachers as students, and it's only been work related. Where's your assignment? You missed this thing. Where have you been? Like those kinds of things. And it's not been, I miss your sense of humor. I miss your face.
I miss your face.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
and I think those relationships, I feel like building relationships are more about that human connection, not the teacher-student connection, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know what kind of news organizations you guys watch, but I've noticed that NBC has been running a thing this week about how stressed our students are. They've been doing it on the Today Show and then like nightly news too. So I've tried to kind of look at it and see sort of what they're saying. You know, here in Arkansas, we've been open for business and a lot of these other states have not. But it's been striking how stressed and disconnected these students continue to say they are. And really, it's not about their work, especially the kids that they're interviewing. They're getting their work done. It has to do with them as people. Like, does anybody notice me? Does anybody miss me? Not just my assignment, but me. Does anybody like where? And I'll also say this, back in March, I have a friend who has a kiddo in the same grade as mine. And, you know, so here we were, I think we were maybe by April. And this mom said, my child has had no interaction with any other student because this particular child is a little introverted and maybe even a little awkward and just doesn't have a lot of independently churning relationships with peers. And so school was great for this young person because it put them in relationship with peers where it was structured and reasonable and everybody had to be there and everybody had to work together. And so this young person had connections because of that. And then all of a sudden they don't, because they don't already have these solid, deeply rooted friendships. And so she's like, it's been weeks. And so both of our students are in the band in an activity together. And I just said, like, I didn't know what to expect of educators. I didn't know what was reasonable. I mean, it was April. And so I just said, let's make up a band Zoom room. Like, let's just make it where they've got to get on together because that particular student needed some of the interactions scheduled in that were not happening for them otherwise. And I think that's one of the other beautiful things that schools do and educators do is they help bring students together in cooperative ways who might not otherwise talk to each other or work together in any way. And kids are missing those kinds of connections too if they're virtual. And so we need to think about that. You know, can they still partner with somebody on a project? Can we force some interactions? So Betsy, tell me if there's anything else there before I flip on to the next slide.
No, I think you're good, but the slide is really big and it is a little bit hard to see.
It's hard to see.
Yeah, I think, are you on one screen?
I am.
I think that's why again, but that's okay, go ahead.
Well, somebody tell me if I need to make it smaller. I just want to reiterate some of the active listening skills, and many of you said you're great at rapport building, so I would assume you're great at these things.
Okay, yes, I think we should make the screen smaller because we can't see the entire graphic.
Okay, let me. What if I do that? Is that better?
Yeah, is that better for you guys? It's definitely better for me. And even though you can see the slides, we can see the entire slide. Julie, can you see the entire slide now?
I can, but it was fine for me before.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, good deal.
Oh, we got some saying, no, it was better before.
Okay, then do it before. So sorry.
Okay.
Ooh, 2020, right? 2021.
Right. So just a reminder of some of these things. I want to say this. I have been in trainings with lots and lots of school counselors, and we talk about active listening skills. And I'll say, hey guys, how many of you know about active listening skills? And they'll be like, yeah, we got it. And then I'll say, show me. And it's terrible. Do you know why? I think this is why. I think school counselors know a lot of times, know how to do this. But the fact of the matter is schools run 1,000 miles an hour. And when they come to your office, you're supposed to fix them so they can get back to their seat and get back to work. And so I think this churn has turned school counselors away from some of these skills and into fix it people, Band-Aid people, fix it, fix it, fix it. Well, just get them, dried up so they can get back to math class. And that's just not the way it works. And so I want to say this, I want to stop the churn. I want to say to all the school counselors and administrators out there who have kids crying in your offices, you don't have to fix it. You do not have to fix it. And good gracious, it is these kinds of things that are actually going to fix it in the long run. It's not going to be a quick fix, but it is this kind of interaction that is reparative and restorative. And so you don't have to put a Band-Aid on it. You don't have to give super awesome advice. You don't have to give advice. Really, you just need to listen like this, right? And so one of the things I would often do when I was in a school is in fact, when we first got me a computer, of course, this was with a grant. I know you guys don't have this option, but I wanted a laptop because what I wanted to be able to do was close the top when a student came in my office. I wanted to have a tangible, visual, clear signal that I am not working right now. Or maybe it is you turn your phone over and set it on your desk or away from you. I want to make sure that they know they are my priority. My phone can ring. I don't care. You're my priority, right? And then what I'm going to do is ask questions that don't require a yes or no and let them answer. And sometimes I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to say something like, you look really mad. And then I'm going to let them say whatever they want to say. And then for the most part, when I ask questions, I take control of the conversation. Because if I ask you a question, what do I want? A response. And if you don't comply, what happens? Oh, now we're in a power struggle. I don't want that. I don't want that. What I want is to give you space to say what you want to say. And so I might ask a question to kind of kickstart that, but then I don't want to control the direction very much unless it's going in a really kind of concerning way. What I want is to give them space to say what they need to say. And so I might summarize, I might ask for some clarification. I'm probably going to do some paraphrasing, and I'm going to paraphrase back with their emotions. And I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to fix it, and neither are you. We're not going to fix it. But what we are is going to say, I'm going to walk with you. I see you. I see you're in pain. I know this is difficult, and I'm going to walk with you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to walk with you. That's what we do. We're not fixing it, right? And so I just want to reiterate again, that works whether they're right in front of you or whether you're on the phone or whether you're in a Zoom room, right? This is what we do. This is what we do. We say what you have to do or what you have to say is important to me, and I'm going to listen all the way through. I also want to just kind of give you a resource, and Betsy, you might want to type this in the chat box. Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett is a book that we've been looking at quite a bit lately, and it is related to the ruler approach, which is a social emotional learning curriculum. But one of the things we really loved about it is that it takes you back to taking a look at your emotions and recognizing how much information they give you and how much it's important to pay attention to what your emotions are saying. Because a lot of times we just dismiss them. So you have a student that is experiencing a lot of emotion, right? That you're concerned about. And for the most part, what we try to do is button it up. We just want to button up the emotion. We just don't want them to feel it. That's not the way emotions work, right? Let me ask you this. Have you guys ever been surprised for 2 hours? Probably not. That would be exhausting. And so emotions fluctuate. They come and they go. They peak and then they fall. And so when we can help young people recognize that their emotions do peak and fall and just help them sort of track where they are, it can be a great way to kind of start the conversation and do some rapport building without having to like get into homework and all of those kinds of things. And so this is the mood meter that he has associated with this. And there's also a mood meter app that young people could use to track their own moods. And so you can see it goes from low energy to high energy and from low pleasantness to high pleasantness. And so you've got these 4 quadrants. They have a Corona Care workbook where they had gathered information from the app. And prior to March, most people were in the green and yellow columns most of the time. And then once we got to April, most people were in the red and blue columns most of the time. And so it was pretty interesting to see them talk about even the information they could get from this app, just based on how, just how much the pandemic has impacted us. We also have on our Facebook page, it's a while back, but there's a video on there that they did that shows that different kinds of learning happen in different quadrants. And so none of these quadrants are bad. If you're going to do your taxes, you probably need to be in the blue quadrant because you're going to be able to be still and critical. And that's probably what you need to do your taxes, right? If you're going to give a passionate advocacy speech, or you're going to defend your thesis, or you're going to, I don't know, you might want to be in the red. You might want to be a little geared up and a little ready to fight. You know what I mean? And so there are learning that can happen in any one of these quadrants. And I'll say this, helping young people to recognize that there's purpose in their emotion and they can even learn in the middle of any of these quadrants can be really, really powerful. So we want to let you know about that resource too. The book's great, guys. You should grab the book. Just real quickly, I just want to point out that back in August, we did a podcast on our Arkansas Wear podcast about face masks. And at that time, we were just looking for, you know, what is going to happen with rapport in terms of having half your face covered? Like, is it going to impact our ability to build rapport? And what we found was, well, first of all, it hadn't been researched with young people because we hadn't had the opportunity to do that, but we found some things that say it does. And so I just want to point out this. When we, first of all, have half our face covered, we're going to have a really hard time connecting with people in the same way. And we're going to have to be very clear about what we mean and what our body language is saying. I think the other thing that's important is this. It is showing us that we need human connection much more than we thought we do. And that covering half our face or being away from each other is creating a situation where we are suffering from the consequences. In this Kids Under Stress NBC thing, they said something like more than 50% of young people now feel less connected to their teachers than they did before. And the problem with that is this. When we talk about resiliency for young people and mental health, one of the key resiliency factor for young people when it comes to mental health is one supportive adult at school. And so what we have is a situation where fewer and fewer kids have that one supportive adult at school, and it's impacting their resiliency. And so it can be an important thing to pay attention to. We can get you guys these slides if you want. I don't want to spend too much time on that. And so what we want to do is just point out, this is real. We have expected from the beginning a second wave of mental health crises as a result of the pandemic. We are getting to that point. We've got our feet under us, maybe enough to start to realize we need to respond. I know before we even started the session, some of you were talking about suicide prevention curriculums and mental health first aid. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because it's important that we feel confident and competent to be able to respond. But one of the things we wanted to show you today is just some tips and information about how to meet with young people online. So it sounds like many of you are using Zoom, and that's great because lots of people know how to use it and it doesn't require any additional setup. What we want to ensure is that you're thinking through things like, do they have enough bandwidth, or would a phone call allow for a better situation if I'm calling or Zooming in order to check on a young person? So we want to think about just some platform kinds of things. But then here's some things on your end that you want to think about. Be focused on that young person. If you're going to bother to Zoom with them or call them, be focused on them. Don't try to have side conversations. Don't be checking your email. Don't be looking at text messages. Like, be focused on them. There's a part of me that thinks we shouldn't have to say that, but I do it too. Like, it's really easy to keep busy with all these screens and all these things in front of us. And so make them your clear priority. I want to also point out, it's important for you to know what you've got around you. It's worthwhile for them to be concerned whether or not they'd be overheard. And so if you need to put earbuds in and connect that directly, do that, so that when they're having a conversation with you, your child who might be in the same grade can't hear it, right? Wear the earbuds so that they won't be overheard.
No, you can't get up. You can't get up.
Check your background. Make sure you're not backlit like Betsy.
This is an example of what not to do.
Betsy made fun of me because I bought a ring light from Amazon. And listen, I love that thing. I don't have it now because it's the office, but
I walked into her office and I said, why do you have a selfie light in here? Are you taking selfies? What are you doing?
I'm just trying not to be backlit in my office. And then do your very best to make eye contact. You guys can probably see I'm looking off to the side a little bit because I'm looking at your faces. And so what I would want to do, and I'll try to just kind of do it so I can show you, is right now I'm moving your faces so that you're right underneath the camera. Does it look like I'm looking at you better now? And so that helps. Pay attention to where you're looking in order to kind of look at them, because we will end up looking at the face and not the camera, but we want to get that as close as we possibly can, and that can be really helpful. Here's some things to think about on their end. Where are they? If you're Zooming them, are they even at their house? Do you know what room they're in? Do you know who's around? Do they have any privacy, or will they be overheard? And then really, do you know the basics? Do you know their address and phone number wherever it is they are when you're on the phone with them or on Zoom with them? Do you know names and ages of other parents or others in the home? I mean, here's the deal, guys. We're still mandated reporters. And if something is happening while we're on a Zoom with them, we probably need this information, and we probably need it before. And so this would be the way to open up the conversation. Hey, Julie, where are you at? Who's in the house with you? Hey, I don't know that I have your phone number. Let me get that phone number real quick. And are you out on Highway 315? Is that right? The place? Okay, good. Okay. You might just need to do a little bit of that ahead of time because we don't know. We don't know. I mean, what if they do say something directly about suicide and you've got to make some quick decisions? You need some of this information right away.
And Nicole, there is a question in the chat box. What would we suggest for students who do not have private or confidential places to call you or Zoom with you? And that's a really hard thing to address. And sometimes there are tons of people around also. So
yeah, I would ask about earbuds. Most kids have them now. And so could you put the earbuds in so nobody can hear me? Now that does still prevent them from being able to speak freely. And so, you know, is it possible they could go for a walk? Is it possible they could sit outside? And maybe they don't have any of those options. Maybe none of that is okay. And so I would probably text with them. I mean, real honestly, and I know, yeah, reply in chat. That's great too, Tammy. I know lots of folks don't like the idea of texting, and I know there are ethical reasons why, and you will have to make that decision for yourself. There are ethical reasons why lots of therapists like me don't do it. But I'll tell you this, when I was at the Jasper School-Based Health Center, people could text when they could not get cell reception to answer a phone call, but text messages would go through because of their Wi-Fi.
Not just that, but I think some kids, and tell them about the app. But some kids feel, I mean, they're much more comfortable. Kids seem to be much more comfortable texting instead of talking a lot of the time. And so tell them about the app, Nicole.
Oh, are you talking about the crisis text line?
No, I was talking about the app that you, Stacy, and I checked out, where you're texting how are you? How was your day? And it texts back.
Oh, yeah, I'll type it in here. Yeah, there are some really great mental health apps out there. It was called Wobot. And it was, it was this little app, and you have your own little robot person that you can talk to, and it's based on algorithms, but they respond back with some pretty interesting stuff and some helpful ways to kind of deal with strong emotions, or it was a pretty cool little app. I also want to say this. It's worthwhile for you also to ask this young person if they have a mental health clinician, because of the fact that everybody's sort of everywhere. Whatever systems you've had before to know who's in mental health and who's not, you just might not know the way you would normally know. And so see if you can find out if you're concerned about a young person and their mental health. Do they already have something set up? Is there set up at a standstill for some reason? Is there something in the way where they're not able to meet with their clinician? I would say, and I think, Betsy, this is true, every clinician in the state is doing telemedicine. I can't imagine them not. And so so there should be opportunities. Yeah.
They are, yes. Which kind of leads into the next slide, actually.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about this a little?
You bet. So if you have, I'll get under my light. So I'm really an example of what not to do on the lighting. So like she said, with all the waivers in place, your mental health provider should have no trouble offering telemedicine or telemental health. Sometimes there's a platform issue, but there's been waivers for that too. There is a HIPAA compliant Zoom platform that a lot of them use. A lot of them use an EMR. But we do, and UAMS has a platform, and Arkansas Aware set up our own platform that eventually every school in the state will have access to. And you can kind of see what it looks like here. And even some of our school counselors have been using it at our pilot sites. We're piloting it currently. But it's really great because if you have a student that you want to talk to, you can just set up a session on demand, or you can schedule a session if you wanted to, like every Monday at 9 a.m. And then it sends them a reminder and a link. And as long as they have a smartphone, or, I mean, they could internet connection too, but they would be able to connect. And even if not the smartphone, there is another way also that will connect them via telephone, which is kind of interesting. So it moves from kind of video conferencing or conferencing that way to also telephonic. So there's really no reason why a student could not get access to mental health services where we're at with the waivers in place. And those waivers are in place throughout this emergency. And I just don't see, I've been getting this question a lot. Do you see those going away? And I really don't, because our providers have gotten into such a a groove of providing the services. I just don't see them taking that away. And so if you are interested in using some other kind of platform other than Zoom, this is a HIPAA compliant platform, you can reach out to me and we can kind of talk about that. We're piloting it right now, but when that's over, it will be available. If your provider, your mental health provider is having issues finding a platform, they need some assistance, you can give them my number and I would also be happy to help them with that also.
Yeah, so we just want to review some resources with you as we come to a close. And just a reminder, put your questions in the chat if you have specific questions you want to ask. So we do have a website on the Department of Education's website. In fact, I think probably this address is different now. I know they've had a change in the website, and so it's probably not.
And I linked it over in the chat box.
Okay, great. So you can find the buttons are still the same. And so there's all of this information here. There's curriculum that you can walk through for trauma-informed practices. We do have information about mental health first aid. And then if you are not sure where else to get the podcast, it's on here as well. And so we want to let you know these things are out here. We're trying to build resources, not just for our pilot schools, but for all of our schools in Arkansas. You want to get this one, Bets?
Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide.
Huh? This one?
I think I must have a delay or something. So we also have, which slide is up currently?
Well, the one.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. It just, I think I have a delay. It took a minute. So we also have a school-based mental health page. So if you have questions about kind of what you have going on in your district, like, I don't know if I have a provider, or I don't know if they have a clinician, or I don't even know who my provider is, this is a really great resource page for you. And you can also find it under School Health Services with the Department of Education. On here under resources, you will find sample contracts. You will find, if you are a school district employed clinician, you will find a ton of resources on here around job descriptions, assessments, things of that nature. It also has web links to Arkansas Aware, the School-Based Health Center page, and the MITS School-Based Mental Health Billing page. So if you are a district employed clinician, you can bill for your services through the school district. And that's a really great thing to do. The application actually comes through our office. But over on the right, what you'll see is the SHAPE assessment. A lot of times people say to me, I don't really know what we need. I don't really know what we have. And so a needs assessment is a really good place to start, whether you're an administrator, a school counselor. You know, if you want to look at your programming and really have a robust school-based mental health program, whether those kids are at home or on your campus, needs assessment is the first place to start. The SHAPE is pre-populated with every Arkansas school district. You can go on there, create an account, set up a team, and then do that needs assessment, and it will basically spit out for you an action plan with the tiers of interventions that you currently provide and tiers of interventions that you need to work on, as well as resources on how to put those things in play. And so the SHAPE assessment is super handy and it's all free. So if you have any questions about needs assessment or really building up your school-based mental health program, or where you need to go from here, or if you're unhappy with a provider or you're super happy with a provider, you can find tons of resources on here. Also, if you're interested in trauma-informed practices, they also have assessments around trauma-informed strategies and practices in the SHAPE system to a needs assessment to determine, are you where you need to be as a school as far as offering trauma-informed services? And so that's another really great resource to check out.
We also do want to point out, the governor introduced this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, that there's a new community resource. It is the statewide community resource portal. What I kind of gathered was they realized that we needed a centralized location for school staff to be able to look and find out what the resources are in their community, because we have so many virtual students who need something and we don't have a centralized way of looking at it. So this this resource is up. And I will say it is full of all kinds of resources. So you can find your local food bank. You can find mental health resources. You can find support groups. You can find all kinds of things. If you have providers or resources in your community that you don't see in the portal, you can let them know and they fill out a little information thing, and then it goes through some vetting, and then it gets posted up on the portal. And so if you are not aware of this, we do want to make you aware of it, because you might be connecting with a young person that you're concerned about and find out they don't have any food and then go, I'm not a social worker. I don't know what to do. And so the thing to do would be to look on the resource portal and say, okay, so here's some options that are close to you. We also want to point this out. There is CARES Act money that is here in the state of Arkansas that is helping to subsidize mental health services. It's called Stay Positive Arkansas. You can find it on Facebook. They have, they've been distributing a lot of information. But essentially what the deal is they will provide therapy if it is related to COVID. So if they can link it back to COVID, they will give you some therapeutic support without having to pay for it through this grant. And so they'll send you to one of their local mental health providers that are connected with this program and get the help. So this is also an important thing to pay attention to as well. There are ways to get mental health services today that were not in place a year ago because they've come through things like COVID related money. And so check this one out, Stay Positive Arkansas, or maybe it was called Promoting Positive Emotions. I think the Facebook page is Stay Positive Arkansas, but they do have a lot of information there. Boy, we also want to.
Yeah, the next, you want me to take the next slide?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so when we do training, there's always questions about teacher and self-care. And what we realized when we work on trauma-informed practices is that it's really hard to implement trauma-informed practices in school districts where you have adults who are really not regulated and maybe not in a healthy space also. And our teachers are pushed to the max. You guys know this. And so we also want to make you aware, if I know as a former school counselor, it also meant that teachers would come in whether I wanted them to or not and share information whether I wanted to hear it or not. And sometimes I was really heartbroken with what they had to share with me about them personally and what they were going through. And so this is a really great resource that a lot of people don't know about. And that is, if you are a state employee on state insurance, school insurance, there is an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, that offers free counseling services for educators. And so you can do this. And actually, our team actually did go through this process to see what it was going to be like. And it can be kind of semi-anonymous when you call in, because they will either offer the services over the phone or hook you up with somebody that can provide those services. But it is free of charge, and it's definitely worth hanging on to and letting your educators in your building know that it's available for them. So we wanted to let you know about that. And the very next slide, I know you guys were talking about youth mental health first aid, but one of the biggest goals around Arkansas Aware is to implement youth mental health first aid. Arkansas had the fewest number of mental health first aiders in the country, and we are really trying to change that. So there is a youth mental health first aid trainer at every co-op in the state. And so really anybody can plug in. We have online sessions and in-person sessions. They are capped at 20 to 30 people, depending on what you're doing. And it is a 6 to 8 hour course, really about putting tools in our educators' toolbox on how to identify students and how to have some of those really difficult conversations as we all come back to school. And it's a really great course for anybody, not just educators, but for the school bus drivers and the cafeteria folks, and the secretaries who see those kids every single day, and who interact with them every single day. This is a really great foundational course. So when people say, Betsy, if I could do anything to start, what would it be? My advice is always start with youth mental health first aid, It'll give you a really good foundation of understanding and knowledge that a lot of folks don't have. And then you can build training on top of that once you get that in place.
Yeah, we have some questions about how do you sign up for this course. Is anybody in the room a trainer?
Julie, are you a trainer? Julie is a trainer. And so
Yes, we have 3 at Arch 4 that are trainers. Karen Norton is here. She's also been trained, but then within our districts, we have lots of trainers. I know Millie is.
Good.
Yeah, we're seeing several who are putting that in the chat. So we have lots of trainers available. If anybody needs that training and is in the Arch Ford region, please let us know and we'll get somebody there to do that.
Yeah.
that sounds great. Thank you. And
Yeah.
also, if you, Julie, if you decide to do any online sessions, Arkansas Aware can pay for those seats for you. You know, if you do it in person, we have the books, but if you do it virtually, we can pay for those seats to make sure that for all school districts across the state, it's virtually free of charge. So
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, free because it's covered by the grant.
yeah, not because it's normally free.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so just know that if you're doing it virtual or blended, you will have to coordinate with us to get your seats. If you're doing it in person, you will need to coordinate with us to get the books. But we love the fact that so many of you are trained and ready to distribute this information. It is very helpful. And again, it's part of you guys feeling competent and confident and working with young people who might be having a mental health crisis. Just a reminder, you probably already know this, but the suicide prevention hotline is still out there. There's also the crisis text line, just 741-741. And just so you guys know, the crisis text line is not necessarily always related to suicide. They say themselves it could be any crisis. You know, they've had young people say, he won't stop touching me, and they're responding to that. They might have young people say, I just got kicked out of my house and I don't know where to go. They're going to respond to that. And so the crisis text line is not just for suicide. The folks that are texting back with these people are helping them to link up to multiple resources for multiple reasons. All right.
I just want to say one thing here. My team had this fantastic idea. So in one of our pilot schools, we had a very tragic year, year before last. There was a suicide and a homicide, both within just a few months of each other. And one thing that the team did is they actually, you can go on the website and you can download those graphics. And we had cards made and we handed those cards out to students, and it was super helpful. And I just feel like when you're giving them something and they have it, it's such a valuable thing. And I guess I never would have thought about before until we were at basic rock bottom in a school district and had nowhere to go. And so if you're thinking, okay, well, that's good to know, will I ever remember it? If you have an opportunity, get some cards made, keep them in your office. You can hand them to kids when they come in. And I think that's a really great way to reach them.
Yeah, you can order free suicide prevention hotline ones from SAMHSA. You can get on there and they'll send you a certain amount for free. So you could drop those in the physical mail to young people if they feel like they need something like that. But the other wonderful thing about virtual is, especially the crisis text line, they don't have, you can't buy cards or get free cards the way you can with the suicide prevention hotline, but you can download all kinds of images. And some of them are GIFs. And so you could text that to a young person. You could put it in a chat and remind them of the crisis text line. And so if you just go to their website, you'll see that they have all kinds of downloadable resources that you could use in your interactions with young people virtually. Just also, we just want to point out that we do have a podcast. We've got, that's the almost 50 episodes up now, which is unbelievable. We're in the middle of season 2. They tend to be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. And we try to talk about issues like mental health, behavior, resiliency, self-care, teacher well-being. And we want to just let you know we have this information out there. Most of it is information that has come from trainings, and we just chunk it out into podcasts because we can't fulfill every PD request. We decided that podcasting would be a nice way to put the information out there and make it accessible to whoever wanted to listen to it. So you just have to search Arkansas Aware and you can find it, and we're happy to do that. So we want to ask you, what questions do you still have? We've talked a little bit about the basics, which is make a connection, build rapport, listen without advice giving or fixing. We've given you some tools, some possible things to think about in terms of your interactions with young people who might be virtual. What else are you curious about? What else do you need to hear us respond about before we go? We've got, it looks to me like 5 more minutes.
Do y'all have sessions that you're going to be offering this summer, Nicole, that they can access like you did last summer?
Yeah, Dr. Stacy Moore and I have kind of looked at our schedule, and we're looking at some different things that we can offer. We are still looking at the same kinds of sessions, and so some of you might have been with us when we did trauma invested classrooms. We'll probably offer that again. I know Stacy Moore has been looking at doing more on student support teams and how critical those can be in schools. We're trying to figure out some other ways to really do some more PD. And so there's some of it that we'll put on probably the DESE one, so that anybody from the state can get on there. What am I talking about? eSchool. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about, but not
ESC
just
works. The DESE ESC works is what she's talking about.
Yes, but Julie, if you do have some specific requests, let us know, and we'll see what we can do and how we can flex that in. And if anybody has a question and wants to unmute, go ahead and do that right now.
Hey, Betsy.
Yes.
This is Jennifer Linder. I had a question. How would y'all address if you've got students, let's say the school counseling side, and you're reaching out and talking to students that are virtual, and they're expressing issues with, certain classes or being in attendance, things like that. And there's things going on that causes them maybe once in a while to not be in attendance. And sometimes it's because they choose not to be in attendance or they don't wake up. And then when you try to talk to the teacher's like we know they're already stretched to the max. They're not really wanting to hear it. They're doing their part. They're there. I see that issue coming up a lot. It's like, I feel like a liaison between, and yeah. I don't know how to address it with my staff to try to get them to show some empathy or to re-invite some empathy into them.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Jennifer. And it really goes back to school culture. And when we first started doing training on trauma in the schools, my staff, my team, Nicole, Stacy, everybody would come back and say, I feel like we're having to teach teachers to be kind again, and to remind them that